Thanks, Evan. Well, Auditor General, in my one-time eHarmony match, Sheila Fraser wants to have a look at Parliament's books. She wants to perform a performance audit on MPs. The Board of Internal Economy, seductively named body that it is, says nope. Michael Ignatieff says, sorry, I actually think we need to sit down with the Auditor General. We need to solve this problem. We need to crack them open. How come the Conservatives haven't come forward and followed his lead?
I'll tell you what else Michael Ignatieff said. Michael Ignatieff also said some accountability, quote, is a waste of money. Here's a guy that's all for openness when it comes to the Afghan detainee documents, but he doesn't want to be open about his bar bill at Highs. Come on already. This is public funds that we're talking about, and the public has a right to know. It ain't state secrets. And I'll tell you, these characters and the way they spend money in all kinds of jurisdictions and all kinds of political stripes isn't good enough. We've seen it in the Maritimes. We've seen it in Toronto where councillors charge bunny suits to their bills. We've seen it in the UK where some MP actually charges his budget to clean his moat. It's time that the public saw this. And why is Ignatieff wanting to compromise? I don't know. That castle of his in France?
Come on,
Has
Terry,
it got a moat?
Hey, listen, where are the Conservatives? Where are the Conservatives? The Conservatives are nowhere. Have they come forward and said, let's have the Auditor General sit down with the Board of Internal Economy? Have they said we're willing to crack open our books? All MPs, Conservatives, Liberals, NDP, they all made a mistake by not getting ahead of this thing in the beginning and saying, let's be proactive, let's have disclosure. Now I'm going to tell you what, it ain't stoppable. They have an unsympathetic argument, and MPs' expenses are going to be examined, and the Auditor General is going to actually win this argument. And you know what? She's going to do it over the protestations of Conservatives.
I'll tell you who's going to win. It's not the Auditor General who's going to win. It's the Canadian public's going to win.
Well, the Conservatives are going to lose because they're the ones that haven't stood up and said we're willing to have a look-see.
Well, in bigger news this week, ACO's poll is out today for the CBC. 10-point lead for Stephen Harper and the Conservatives. Mr. Ignatieff has moved into Dion territory, Dion country. When does the leadership bell go off, Scott?
Oh, come on. Listen, you know what? The last thing that Liberals should be doing right now is making lemonade in their underoos. Harper has never been able to crack 34%. He hasn't been able to seal a deal with Canadians. Only 2 months ago, we were tied. I'm not suggesting everything is rosy.
Prime Minister for years.
Oh, really? But he hasn't been able to seal a deal and consolidate. I don't know what more Canadians could do.
10 points
Hire
ahead.
a skywriter? They don't like the options. It is up to all party leaders to seal the deal. I'm not suggesting everything is rosy. Mr. Ignatieff needs to step up the game. That means a sharper contrast with what Liberals would provide as compared to the Conservatives. It means speaking more to middle-class Canadians. They're struggling with household debt. They don't feel that the economy is doing well. They don't feel that their prospects are being nurtured by this government. Let's show them that we understand them. Let's show them that we actually have an alternative. That's what's not happening, and that's what needs to happen. I think that's what's going to happen.
Said, not only is Ignatieff not just visiting anymore, he's moved into Dion country, and he's bought the biggest house on the block. Now, look at Scott. I've told you many weeks. I like Michael Ignatieff personally. I like the idea of Michael Ignatieff. I like the idea of late career people entering politics who are accomplished in other walks.
You sound like a big friend.
That said, it ain't working. It reminds me of the new Coke. As hard as Coca-Cola tried to sell that thing, it didn't work. They had to retreat, regroup, and have a new strategy. Not my tribe, not my decision, but at some point the Liberals are going to have to face facts. This dog ain't hunting.
Yeah, nonsense. You know you want to fight, you throw punches. That's what we need to do. All right, now listen, speaking of polls, we're also going to talk for a second about what's going on in Quebec. 30 years ago, the sovereigntists lost a referendum. New poll out says that actually a lot of Quebecers are looking past the sovereignty option. This has caused some intemperate commentators to suggest that separatism is dead. Jamie, do you agree?
Well, I don't think it's dead, and what I do think is that we can't take Quebec for granted, and we can't take the aspirations of Quebecers for granted. You know, when I was growing up and I was a little boy, I lived in Montreal. I woke up one day, there was a tank on my lawn, mailboxes were blowing up, my Cubs were cancelled. The War Measures Act was proclaimed on my birthday. We've come a long way since then. The Parliament of Canada has recognized the Quebecois as a distinct nation within a united Canada. Yep. Quebec is very much part of our defining identity as Canadians. And you know, as my granny said, you live long enough and other things happen. All Canadians today, including James Moore, are Habs fans.
All right, go Habs, go! Gonna have a big victory tonight. I just feel it. Look, to my mind, on the Quebec issue, I agree with you. This isn't about separatism. This is about nationalism. It's about personal pride in your nation and in your people. And it would be a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake for Federalists to spike the football on the 5-yard line, because that's exactly when the other team will pick it up and run it down the sideline and score. score. You know what we need to do? We need to consolidate our opportunities right now. Let's continue to bring Quebec together. Let's continue to expand on the momentum. I don't believe that Harper is actually welcomed Quebec in hard enough. I don't think that, he had a momentum there, to be honest. I think he genuinely had a moment, and it was lost. Now we really have to look at the federal options and say, what can we do? How can we welcome Quebec even more? How can we consolidate that opportunity and that excitement?
On that, we both agree. It's prediction time on Point of Order. This week, Finance Minister, Cabinet Ministers fanned out all around the globe to try and stop the global bank tax. They proposed something different. They proposed a made in Canada solution with the fancy name of embedded contingent capital. There's something that'll put you to sleep. But the question is, when this comes up at the G20, will Canada and the Canadian solution prevail?
No, I don't think it will. And let's not, let's be clear. This is not a conservative proposal. This is a proposal that came from a professional bureaucrat, Julie Dickson.
Aggressively championed by the government of Canada.
Well, that's good to see. But, this is a government that has never failed to beat on its bureaucrats. So it's good to see an actual bureaucratic proposal being championed. There are some challenges with it. There's some challenges with it. I personally love the idea of the Tobin tax. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Taxing banks is a Liberal's wet dream.
Well, okay, go crazy there, Captain Canada. I'm telling you, I think it makes a lot of sense. In a world where derivatives have been responsible for blowing up half the global economy. What we really need is international financial regulation, the financial sector, which this government is opposed. Julie's proposal is interesting. I don't think it'll be accepted because when's the trigger for converting debt into, for converting bonds into stock? All that sort of stuff.
It's a prediction time. My prediction is it will be successful, and here's why. Canada's economy is strong. Canada is leading those countries in terms of financial stability. Why? Sensible regulation and good economic policy. From who? The Dean of the Finance Ministers, Jim Flaherty. I know you'd love him to fall on his face. Liberals would love him to fall on his face. But on this one, Canada's got something to say, and the world is listening.
I'll tell you what Canada should say. What Canada should say, what this Conservative Prime Minister should say, is that the G20 is a Canadian institution created by my former boss, led by my former boss. Would it kill your guy, Stephen Harper, to show the grace to say this is a great Canadian institution,
and what you should
championed by my predecessor?
And what you should say is we're out of time.
Yeah, well, all right, Evan, that's it for Point of Order this week. We'll see you back in 7 days when I'll still be right, Jamie will still be wrong, and Stephen Harper, sadly, will still be our Prime Minister.
I'm Jamie Watt. See you, Evan.
Thanks.
Jamie Watt and